आदाब, प्रणाम, सत श्री अकाल, नमस्कार। मैं उम्मीद करती हूँ कि आप सब लोग होंगे। जी, तो ये था यूट्यूब का एको जो अब बंद कर दिया है। जी, मैं उम्मीद करती हूँ कि आप सब लोग होंगे बहुत ही प्रसन्न, खुशहाल और सेहतमंद। तो चलिए अब हम शुरू करते हैं। अम साफिया बहन आदाब, प्रणाम। आप जुड़ गई हैं हमारे साथ। बेग जी हेलो, नमस्ते। कबीर मिर्जा जी आदाब। डी डैक्स जी राम राम। असास जी जय श्री कृष्णा। नरेंद्र भाई आपको भी राम राम। वजीता जी जी आई एम हियर नाउ। टाइम पे ही शुरू कर दिया भाई। सॉरी कल आधा घंटा शायद पहले का स्केड्यूल किया था, तो यही आधा घंटा आगे पीछे इसी यही टाइम रहेगा, रफली 8:39 के बीच का टाइम। तो कल भी इसी टाइम पे करेंगे हम। और शर्मा जी गुड मॉर्निंग, नमस्कार। देशमुख भाई गुड मॉर्निंग, प्रणाम। काजी सलीम भाई आदाब। तो चलिए हम आज का शुरू करते हैं। मैंने सोचा कि हम ये देखिए, ये जो वेदांता की बातें हैं ये बेहद गूढ़ है और ये किसी नॉवल की तरह नहीं पढ़ी जाती। श्रवण मनन निध्यासन, ये प्रोसेस है वेदांता का। श्रवण मतलब सुनना, मनन यानी कि उसके बारे में विचार करना, जो भी डाउट्स आए उसके बारे में क्वेश्चन करना, और निध्यासन, एक बार डाउट्स क्लियर हो जाएं तो उसको अपनी प्रैक्टिस में लेके आना। तो अब से मैं ये कोशिश करूंगी कि हम स्वामी जी का एक ही वीडियो देखा करें रोज, ताकि फिर हम सारे दिन दिनचर्या में उसको हम उसके बारे में श्रवण तो कर लें, उसके बाद हम उसके बारे में मनन करें सारे दिन, और फिर निध्यासन करें, उसको प्रयोग में लेके आए। तो बिना किसी विलंब के अब मैं पहला वीडियो आज का प्रस्तुत करती हूँ।
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। May the Lord protect us both, teacher and the taught together. May the Lord protect us both by giving us the results of knowledge. May we attain vigor together. Let what we study be illuminating. May we not cavil at each other. Om, peace, peace, peace. So we're studying the Katha Upanishad and the dialogue between the little boy, Nachiketa, who's the student, and the teacher is the awesome Lord of Death, Yama, who is teaching Nachiketa about the nature of the self, about what we truly are. And then in the last few verses, we have seen in 21 and 22, he has used 20, 21, 22, paradoxical language, smaller than the smallest, vaster than the vastest, and located within our own minds. Then that which goes everywhere, although it is seated in one place. When it lies down and it spreads everywhere, who can know this this extraordinary entity, which is with joy and beyond joy also, Madamadam Devam. It is without a body, and yet it is existing in our bodies, within this very body, this vast self. Now, all this contradictory, this paradoxical language, I told you last time, it is used to point out the nature of the self because it cannot be said directly. The Atman cannot be expressed directly in language. Language cannot refer to that reality. Why it cannot refer to that reality, we have discussed a number of times. What language can do and what language cannot do. All right. Now, because it is so subtle, you need, there are certain spiritual practices, sadhana, to realize the Atman. And that's what Yama is going to talk about in mantra number 23 and 24. This is very subtle. So who can realize this? It can be realized, but who can realize this and who cannot realize this? In these two mantras, he will point out the sadhanas, the practices. In mantra number 23. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyo namedhaya na bahuna shrutena yame vaisha vrinute tena labhya tasyeshatma vivrinute tanum swam. This self, the Atman, cannot be known through much study, nor through the intellect, nor through much hearing. It can be known through the self alone that the aspirant prays to. This self of that seeker reveals its true nature. The way it is put, it can be confusing. It says, all the things that we are doing, attending classes and studying and so all of these things, it's just saying right here, you can't realize the Atman by all these things. Now, what it means is, just by these things one cannot realize. The point of this mantra is one must really want it. If one does not want it, then no matter how much of texts you study, how much you memorize, how much you try to understand, it will not work until one really wants it. The point of this mantra, we will see later, the point of this mantra is that what Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the one condition for God realization, for enlightenment, is vyakulata. In the words of Sri Ramakrishna, vyakulata, which you see in the lives of all great saints, whether it is Ramakrishna or Kabir or Mirabai or any of the great saints from ancient times. In every religion you find, it's not somebody who got to enlightenment casually. I just attended a couple of lectures and I became enlightened. It never happens that way. So generally, you will see a very intense, one-pointed search for God realization. Whether it is a dualistic, theistic religion, whether it is in Buddhism, whether it is in Advaita Vedanta, the intense desire for enlightenment must be there. So that is what is being talked about here. But the language, we'll have to see clearly what Yama wants to say here. It is put in such a way one may misunderstand. So there's no other way of getting it except through it. Then he says, whoever the self chooses, to that one the self reveals itself. Now, in dualistic interpretations of this, immediately this is put as the doctrine of grace, kripa. You cannot realize God through any sadhana. Only by the grace of God you can realize God. So at that point, in that interpretation, Atma would be replaced by God. So that is the dualistic interpretation. But in Advaita Vedanta, what does it mean? You will see. The commentator Shankara makes it clear. The Yama says, who will realize the Atman? The one whom the Atman chooses to itself, to that one, the Atman will reveal itself. The ultimate reality will reveal itself. But then the question arises, whom will the Atman choose? Then Shankaracharya says, that one who chooses the Atman. So if you want to realize the Atman yourself, then yourself, the ultimate nature of yourself will be revealed to you. Let us go to Shankara's commentary. I will read out a few portions and explain this interesting mantra. If you just read about it, it will seem that pravachana, by talks, classes, medha, by intellect, shravana, by hearing, the shravana, manana, nididhyasana. It seems to say by none of these you can realize God, or you can become enlightened. But this is what we are trying to do. Well, Shankaracharya introduces this mantra by saying, Yadyapi durvegyeyam ayam atma tathapi upayena suvigneya eva ityaha. Although this atma is very difficult to realize, it is subtle, it is very difficult to ascertain what it is, but upayena, by the proper methods, it is easily realizable. So that's the point of this mantra, not to discourage you by saying, whatever you do, you are not going to become enlightened, only if the Atman has its grace on you. See, Atman has its grace on you. Atman is you. So what does it mean? You have your grace on you. Your higher self has your grace on you. What does it mean? It only means if you want to realize it. That is the one condition. Sri Ramakrishna again and again said the one condition of enlightenment is vyakulata, the intense desire to see God, or intense desire to be liberated, to be free. In the fourfold qualification which we read in Vedanta, at the introduction to any Vedanta, we have the fourfold qualifications. What are the fourfold qualifications? Viveka, discernment between the eternal and the non-eternal. Vairagya, dispassion for the non-eternal. That means a detachment, dispassion, turning away from that. Then the sixfold treasure, which are disciplines. And then finally, the last one, mumukshutvam, intense yearning. Sri Ramakrishna says, and Shankaracharya also in Vivek Chudaman, he says, this intense yearning is what is actually required for enlightenment. Once this has come, enlightenment is guaranteed, whichever path you're walking on. If you are walking on the path of God realization, dualistic devotion to God, you will get God realization. If you're walking on the path of self-realization, you will get it. Basically, what we want intensely, we will attain it. That wanting intensely is what is being emphasized here. But the way he's putting it is, Yama is telling Nachiketa, this self, pravachanena na labhya, you cannot attain it, you cannot realize it. Labhya means, attaining means, Shankaracharya says, labhyo gyanyo, knowable, realizable. It is not realizable by lot of, here pravachana is Vedic study, or, attending talks on Veda, like we are attending talks on Vedanta, for example. Na medhaya. Medha is that intelligence, is the spiritual intelligence, a capacity of our intellect. Shankaracharya simply defines it. This is a pretty secular definition. He says, Granthartha dharana shakti, the ability to assimilate the meaning of a text, the ability to hold on to, assimilate the meaning of a text, not just the words. So the first one, pravachana, you've heard the words, you've read the books, I've borrowed the books from the library, I've gone through all the reading list. So have you understood? No, not much. So what's the difference between the two? Pravachana is I'm acquainted with the reading intelligence. Na bahuna shrutena. Na bahuna shrutena kevalena. That means Shankaracharya says the shravanam, the systematically studying Vedanta texts. If I keep on doing it, will I become enlightened? No, not even by that. Why this is interesting is we have been told Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana is the way to become enlightened. Here by Shravana, he includes Manana and Nididhyasana also. So by Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana, I cannot realize the Atman. So he is now building up to one important point, that we must really want it. All of these are necessary. So you must approach Vedantic texts. You must attend the talks. You must try to understand what is being said. And you must go through Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. This is the thing to do and what we are doing. But the essential condition, Shankaracharya now points out, and the Upanishad itself puts it this way. Then what is the essential condition? Who will realize the self? The one whom the Atma chooses. Vrinute means chooses. By that one, the Atman will be realized. To that one, this Atma reveals its real nature. So this is the point where dualistic interpreters will say kripa, grace. This is, we're talking about the grace of God. God will choose. But it is not enough to put it that way. Why? Because God's grace is always there. It's not that God's grace is there on some and God's grace is not there on others. Sri Ramakrishna is to, he lived on the bank of the river, and he would see these little boats. Even now you can see, sometimes they raise their sail. There's little sails also. And Sri Ramakrishna says, the wind of God's grace is always blowing. Raise your sail and you'll catch that wind. So like the boat, the wind is blowing. The boat, those boatmen who raise their sail, then the boat sails along merrily on the river. Similarly, if you raise the sail means you have to put forth that effort. And raising the sail here would mean all of these things. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, all of this will be included. Now, here Shankaracharya says, Swatmanam esha sadhaka vrinute prarthayate. So whom that the sadhaka, the spiritual seeker, wants it. Swayam atma labhyo gyayate evam ityetat. So the atma is realizable by that one. By whom? Not by the one you see, just by the atma chooses. It doesn't make much sense because atma is your own self. It's always there, always shining forth. We must want it. And then Shankaracharya makes a comment. Nishkamasya atmanam eva prarthayata. So he says, Nishkama, the one who has turned away from worldly desires. The intensity of desire for God realization is inversely proportional to our pull towards the world. It just is not convincing that I am very greedy and I am very much invested in chasing worldly pleasures, very much angry with some people, very much upset with others, very much jealous with others. And I'm also intensely desiring God. It doesn't work. All these emotions have to be gathered up and channeled towards in our spiritual path. Then only it works. So this is mumukshutvam. In Vedanta, the fourfold qualification, the final one, mumukshutvam, intense desire to be free. Like two examples are there. One is Sri Ramakrishna himself is to give that example. When the disciple came and asked the Guru, why am I not realizing God? Why am I not being enlightened? And then the Guru took him to the river for a bath and then dunked him in the river and held him down under the water. Still the boy started struggling. And then the Guru let him out. How did you feel? And that boy said, I would have given anything for one breath of air. He says, when you feel like that for God realization, you will surely attain God realization. So that's an example. Another example they say which is Vedic example, Shiro Vrata. Suppose somebody's head is on fire. Now you're running around, that person will run around to find any water and jump into that water to douse the fire on the head. Which means such an intense desire. The world is such a problem for me. Samsara is such a problem for me. Suffering is such a problem for me. I want to get out of it. Now, who will feel like that? Person who is suffering very much? Not necessarily. A lot of people are suffering very much. Deep suffering is there, but they don't want to get out of it. They want that suffering to be solved. Somebody is in great financial difficulty, in debt, and I'm going to commit suicide because of the debt. I can't pay up the debt. If somebody comes and pays up the debt, very good, done, no problem. Now, will the problem arise? The question arise, why was there so much suffering? Then the samsara is full of suffering. What is the solution to all this? No. Once the debt has been paid off, my problem is solved. I'll go on with the same thing again. And so for everything, illness is there. I'm sick. Now, illness is natural. Ultimately, the body is prone to illness. How to realize my existence, that I am not the body, not the mind? That question does not come up. What comes up is, how can this illness be cured? Whether I go to the doctor or whether I go to God, my question is not enlightenment. How can the illness be cured? So we want worldly solutions for worldly problems. It will go on like this. It will never be totally solved or at any deep, profound level. Look at the Buddha. The Buddha, just by seeing suffering all around, he was not suffering. He was having a wonderful time. But just by seeing suffering all around, he realized the inevitability and the ubiquity of suffering. And then he wanted a solution for it. Is there some deep solution which can take us beyond suffering? That is the real inquiry. That is mumukshutvam. The great desire to know what is beyond all this, jigyasa, Brahma jigyasa, the inquiry about the ultimate reality. When Narendranath was going around and asking people about God, he seriously meant it. It was not a casual question. He was like, if somebody could give me a convincing answer to my question, I will throw in my entire life there and try to realize. That's what happened when Sri Ramakrishna convinced him. God exists. God can be experienced. And I will show you how God can be experienced. So Narendranath did not just say, okay, now I've got my answer, bye. No, he threw his life into it and he was transformed into Vivekananda. So that is mumukshutvam. That is real jigyasa, not just a curiosity. So he says, nishkamasya, and that can happen only when one has a certain amount of detachment from the world. Otherwise, suffering will only let us, will struggle, will try to solve that suffering and jump back into the world the moment the suffering is reduced. Sri Ramakrishna used to call it this shamshan vairagya, smashan vairagya. That means near and dear one, someone dies, and then one becomes very spiritual for a while, and then goes away, maybe in search of God, but very soon it's gone. And then back to worldly life again. So that vairagya, which comes after a shock, it may lead to permanent interest in spirituality, or it may not. But it should be permanent. Otherwise, one cannot realize the Atman. So Shankaracharya says, Tasya atmakamasya esha atma vivrinute prakashayati paramarthiki tanum swam swakiyam swa yathatmyam ityartha. So to that one who is atma kama, what does it world? Not world kama, not desiring worldly things, but atma kama, one who wants to realize, intensely wants to realize. The one who wants the atma, to that one, the atma reveals itself. What does it mean, reveals itself? Atma means self. The self is always revealing itself. I know that I am the self. I am. I know this. All of us know that I am. But he says paramarthikim, its absolute nature, not this relative body mind nature. This body mind, I am this individual person, everybody knows. Nobody has to be told this. This is the objection raised against the whole Vedanta project. What does Vedanta say? Inquiry into the self. And what will be the result? You will solve all your problems. The immediate objection will be, first of all, what do you inquire into? That which you don't know. And that inquiry which will be valuable, which will give some result. So the Purva Paksha, the objection is against Vedanta. Both of these conditions for inquiry are not fulfilled. What are the two conditions for inquiry? One, I don't know, so I would like to inquire and find out. Second, that it will be of some use. Well, both of these conditions are not fulfilled for this Atmanusandhana, for self-inquiry. Why? I know myself. I know. I may not know many things in this world, but I know that I am Sarvapriyananda. And I can tell you many things about myself. I can bore you endlessly by talking about myself. So I know who I am. That's number one. Second one, and by knowing myself, nothing much has happened. I'm still the same person who's suffering. So that inquiry is useless, which does not give any result. I already know who I am, and that knowledge has not helped me at all. The answer to that will be, you do not know who you are. Vedanta says what you think about yourself, that I know myself, is only surface knowledge, is only fractional knowledge, only a very limited knowledge, and ultimately it is false. It is wrong knowledge. You are taking what you are not to be yourself. It's not just a claim, we can demonstrate it. Not very difficult to demonstrate, can be demonstrated. By the neti process will be demonstrated what I took to be myself. I was completely convinced this is who I am. I did not give it a second thought. Vedanta forces us to give it a second thought. Take a look. What you think to be yourself is not you. You are not the body, not the mind. You are awareness. You are the witness consciousness. Second, no use. What is the use of this self-inquiry? There is a great use. By this self-inquiry, you will realize what you are. Having realized what you are, you will see this, what you really are, the Atman, is beyond all troubles already. Forever was. It is a delusion that I was in so much trouble. It's a delusion that I was in so much limitation. So two stages. You recognize that you are consciousness. Not just ordinary, people will immediately say, I know I'm consciousness. I am body plus consciousness. No, I'm a conscious body. No, you are consciousness and only consciousness. Then mind, body comes later. You are aware of it. So you are this consciousness. Step one, this is your real nature. Step two, appreciate your real nature. Appreciate your real nature means this consciousness is an unlimited consciousness. It is not born with the birth of the body, does not age with the aging of the body, is not diseased with the disease of the body, does not die with the death of the body. It is not made miserable by the misery of the mind. It is not, does not hunger for the little pleasures of the senses and the mind. It illumines everything and is unaffected by anything. This, when you realize this, and I am such a thing which is immortal, I am such a thing which is not the mind and not affected by the ups and downs of the mind, then it is an amazing thing for me. You know, I was the Advaita teacher, Rupert Spira, somebody asked him, are there stages in enlightenment? He gave a very nice answer. And you see, that is the pattern adopted in classical Vedanta texts. He says 3 stages are actually there. First stage, enlightenment, 3 stages, not to enlightenment. In enlightenment, there are 3 stages, he says. First stage is to realize what we are, that I am awareness, this unlimited awareness. Neti, not body, not mind. In Drigdrishya Viveka, we do it. Panchakosha Viveka, we do it. Avasthatraya Viveka, we do it. Many methods are there, but by which we realize what we are. That is stage 1 of enlightenment. But second, you appreciate what you have discovered, that it is actually immortal. I thought I was mortal. Now I appreciated it. I am immortal. I thought I am trapped by the ups and downs of the mind. Now I realize, no. The mind is peaceful, happy, blissful in one moment. Next moment, the slightest problem, our nice worldview which we have set up, if it's disturbed a little bit also, immediately unhappy. Such a rascal mind, such a untrustworthy mind. Why will you depend on it when it shows you a lot of happiness? Oh, I'm very happy. No. Be wary of the mind. The mind which delivers so much peace and happiness to you, you are the one who illumines that peaceful, happy mind. The next moment, when the mind becomes upset because something in the world has changed which is not to its liking, people have changed, health has changed, financial condition has changed, weather has changed, tummy trouble is there, some problem, the mind immediately becomes upset. You realize, I illumined you, mind, when you were peaceful, happy, delighted. Now when you are troubled and annoyed, I'm illumining you. I am not troubled. I am not annoyed. I am ever the same. You appreciate that you are the trouble-free awareness, ever trouble-free consciousness. So Rupert Spira says that is the second stage of enlightenment, where you begin to appreciate this amazing thing about your own nature. You are already free and trouble-free. You've got moksha already, mukta swabhava. Then third stage, what more is there? He says, as long as this body lasts, you will have to live your life. Now see, with this new knowledge of who you are and this new appreciation of who you are, can you deal with the challenges which keep coming to life? Can you react better and better from now onwards? This is called Jivan Mukti. He doesn't say that, Jivan Mukti, but this is actually Jivan Mukti. You realize Aham Brahmasmi, and then you appreciate the nature of yourself, the glory of yourself. In Vivek Chudamani, in Ashtavakra, again and again, the enlightened one sings, Aho Aham Namo Maham. Oh, how amazing I am. Salutations to myself, not small s, capital S self. That is the appreciation of one's own glory. Having appreciated one's own glory, now see, put it to use, practical use. Let the, what do they call, rubber hit the road. Walk the talk. See whether things do not upset you so much that you are brave and you can face big problems in life with calmness, that you can stick to what is right and easily overcome what is wrong. All of these things, the characteristics of Sthita Prajna, are they coming into my life? That is the third stage. So the Atman reveals itself to the one who intensely wants the Atman. So this is the meaning of Nayam Atma Pravachanena Lapya. So by Vedantic study, will the Atma be, or attending Vedantic classes, talks, Atma will not be attained? No, unless one wants it. If one wants it, then of course one will attend these talks, one will try to get knowledge. Na medhaya, is medha not required then? The capacity to understand and absorb. Shankaracharya says, Grantha Dharana Shakti, not required? Of course it is required. In fact, in Vedanta, it's required more than anything else. Once I mentioned this in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, a lot of Vedantic talk was going on, Brahman, Atman, Maya. Sri Ramakrishna listened very carefully and then he said in Bengali, Kathagulo bhalo, dharana hawa chai. This talk is good, the words are very good, but there should be dharana, assimilation of what has been taught, that it becomes a reality for me. I can hold on to it. I can live my life, not just words. So medha is very much required. Shravana Manana, he says, na bhavna shrutena, not by a lot of Shravana. So Shravana is not required. Yes, it is very much required. But all of this follows the essential condition, I really want enlightenment. Then all of these will work. Of course, one might then say, I don't have that intense desire for enlightenment, which Sri Ramakrishna had, Vivekananda had, Buddha had, so I will not get enlightenment. For us, the time will take a little longer, that's all. We have it, not to that extent. Not to the level of excellence which Yama is demanding here. Not to the level Nachiketa has it. Intense desire for this self-knowledge. But we all have it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. Why are we all sitting here reading Vedanta? We have it, only this process will develop it further. This, what we are doing, Shravana, Manana, Nijidhyasana, will increase our mumukshutvam, increase our intensity to know. Yeah, and I also pointed out that those who want to interpret, want to bring in grace, they bring it in at this point, because the language is very much suitable for interpretation as grace. By the grace of the Atman. Of course, by the grace of Atman doesn't make much sense. So by the grace of God, one becomes enlightened. And that definitely makes sense. Only, as I said, grace of God is always there. In the Chandogya Upanishad, 7th chapter, Narada, he goes to Sanat Kumara, and and then there he asks, make me enlightened. And then Sanat Kumara says that, what do you know? You are known as a great sage, so you must have studied a lot. Tell me what you know. And Narada, he tells the whole thing, all kinds of vidyas, all knowledge. I mean, if you just see the syllabus of our university, the whole syllabus he tells, every branch of knowledge he has mastered. Then you know everything. No, Narada says, no. I know the words, but I have not realized the meaning of it. So I am acquainted with the texts. I've done all the reading, and I know all worldly sciences, but Atma I do not know. Why would you want to know the Atma? You've got multiple PhDs, you're the most learned person. Is it because Atmavit, Tarati Shokam Atmavit, the knower of the self goes beyond sorrow. So I have heard. I have not gone beyond sorrow. After learning so much also, I have not crossed over the ocean of sorrow. Narada is a real seeker. Nachiketa is a real seeker. Narendra was a real seeker. Buddha was a real seeker. Sri Ramakrishna was a real seeker. Because the world, they saw it as a problem to be transcended, and that there is a possibility of transcending the suffering of the world. As I said earlier also, just suffering will not make us a real seeker. A lot of people suffer, but they don't become seekers. And there is a saying, I've forgotten Sanskrit, but the meaning of the saying is, to the thinker, to the sensitive soul, everything is suffering. Whatever is in the world is dissatisfying. It is like, see, the eyeballs, even the thin strand of a cobweb, spider's web, if that will be irritating to the eyeball. The eyeball is very sensitive. So to the eyeball, that will also be irritating. Similarly, to the sensitive mind of the thinking person, sensitive person, everything in this world will be dissatisfying, and they'll want to find a deeper, a higher truth. What other qualifications? So we understand. We have the takeaway from this is You need intense desire for enlightenment. Good. What else? What else do you need? Next. All the other qualifications are being mentioned here. 24. Na virato dushcharitan, na shanto na samahita, na shantamanaso vapi, prajnanenainamapnuyat. Let me read out the translation given by Gambhiranji. One who has not desisted from bad conduct, whose senses are not under control, whose mind is not concentrated, whose mind is not free from anxiety about the result of concentration, cannot attain this self through knowledge. How will you become enlightened? Through knowledge. How will you get knowledge? Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, this is what we have heard again and again. But here Yama points out again that it will not work unless these preliminary conditions are satisfied. What are these preliminary conditions? We know them well. The fourfold qualifications. So what has been said here, this is the raw material out of which was later systematized as the fourfold qualifications. Any standard entry text into Advaita Vedanta, they will talk about sadhana chatushtaya. Adhikari means the person who is qualified for Vedanta has fourfold qualification. We read in Vedanta Sara, sadhana chatushtaya sampanna pramata adhikari. Pramata means the one who seeks knowledge. When does the seeker of knowledge become an adhikari, qualified for Vedanta? When that person is equipped with the fourfold qualifications. The first sutra of Brahma Sutras, Athato Brahma Jigyasa, if you translate it directly, it will mean hence, therefore, inquiry into Brahman. That means entry into Vedanta. But what is the meaning of this hence and therefore? So commentator has to explain. Sutra is compact. It has to be expanded by the commentator. So Shankaracharya comments there. Hence. Hence means what? Whence. So there he says this atha means hence. Hence means equipped with the fourfold qualifications. So this is the meaning of that atha. And therefore means wherefore. Because the person sees the limited nature of this samsara, that suffering is inevitable here. Therefore, the one seeks some ultimate solution to the problems of the world, the answer to this mystery of life. What is going on here? Why are we here? Is there some way of transcending the problems of the world? Therefore, Brahma Jigyasa, an inquiry into Brahman. Exactly what all great seekers have done throughout. They may not have read Brahma Sutra, Athato Brahma Jigyasa, but they did it. They were qualified. Look at Vivekananda, look at Buddha, look at Ramakrishna. They were qualified, and they were seeking this ultimate reality. They were troubled by the sorrows of the world, and then they inquired into that ultimate reality. Inquiry is not just reading, it's a first intense desire to be free, and then these qualifications. Again, to repeat, what are the qualifications? Viveka, Vairagya, Shamadamadi Shat Sampatti, Mumukshutvam. Viveka and Vairagya already have been talked about earlier. Viveka, the discernment between Nitya and Anitya. Eternal reality is there, God, Atma, Brahman, whatever you call it. All religion says something is there. I take it seriously. Then you have Viveka. Vairagya, this world which entangles us continuously. I turn away from it for the purpose of realization. I don't give it that much importance. 90% of my time and energy are going there. 90% of my mind is given there. Spirituality is not possible that. Then the sixfold treasures, these are disciplines. These disciplines are now going to be talked about here. Yama is saying that these are the things which are necessary. Remember the disciplines? Shama, a calmness of the mind. The mind must not be restless, thinking about dozens of different things. Dhamma, control of the organs of actions and organs of knowledge. Eyes want to see something, always running after what to give nice things for the eyes to see, nice sound, music for the ears to hear. And it could be music, or it could be words of praise for me. I must always listen to praise and people praising me. That is also a ear. Tongue, always seeking nice, tasty food, what the tongue wants. and touch, nice, soft, comfortable things to wear, to lie down in a comfortable bed and all of that. So with the touch or temperature control, I again and again here that when people go to India or go back to India, how uncomfortable it is. It's not as cold as it here is here in New York, but we always feel cold in India. Why? Because whatever is outside is also inside. If it is 40 degrees outside, it's 40 degrees in your house. It's 40 degrees in the bed also, Fahrenheit. So, but because we have become used to comfort. No, a certain control, dhamma, control of the sense organs. Then titiksha, spiritual toughness. Ups and downs will be there in the world. Ups and downs will be there in the body also. Health and other problems will be there. Mind also. But one must forbear with that, not be disturbed from one's Vedantic study. Then uparati, withdrawal of the senses from too much engagement, withdrawal from the mental side, the too much engagement with the world, trying to get happiness from worldly success, from entertainment, continuously trying to be entertained by things in the world. No. So this uparati, rati means entertainment, becoming too much, taking pleasure inward in the senses in the world. Uparati, reverse, pull back. Then samadhana, what you have pulled back, now you must concentrate it on the atma. Focus in meditation, in prayer, in study. It all must be focused on your goal of God realization. Then shraddha, a deep faith that it will sustain you. All these disciplines will be sustained by the deep faith that there is some ultimate reality here. This is worthwhile pursuit. It's a worthwhile pursuit. Something, the best thing, best adventure that a human being can engage upon is this adventure to realize the ultimate reality. It is possible. Once I realize it is possible, why should I not pursue it? It's the greatest thing that there is in life. So shraddha. Now, this we have seen when we study Vedanta, you see this again and again, every text will tell you this. But the Upanishad, when you see this in the Upanishad, you realize what we read in later texts like Aparokshanubhuti or Vivek Chudamani, or this Vedanta Sar, they are all systematizations of the materials collected from the Upanishads. What are those materials? Here you see. Where did those sixfold treasures, where did they come from? Here you see. First, na virata duscharita. Shankaracharya says duscharita, immoral action, immoral behavior. And then he describes what is duscharita. Pratisiddha, shruti smriti vihita. So shruti smriti avihita, avihitat papa karmana. What is not prescribed in your religious texts, in your moral texts, or what our own conscience tells us is not right. If I still continue to do that, and I internally feel guilty, but I continue to do that, you have not stopped from immoral activities in your life. It says for such a person, this is called na avirata duscharita. Has not stopped from immoral action. One must stop it. It does not matter if we have done it earlier, but one recognizes it is not right to speak in that way, to act in that way, even to think in such a way. It's not right. One feels that, then stop that. That much stopping, desist from it. Then, second, napi na ashanta, na asamahita. So he says, napi indriya lolyad ashanta anuparata. Not only his activities, I'm not doing anything immoral. Everything what I'm doing is accepted by society. Society gives a tick mark to it, that it's all right, nothing wrong in it. But it's continuously engagement in the indriyas, in seeing things, hearing things, continuous busyness in the world outside. Then also self-knowledge is not possible. The indriyas, the senses are uncontrolled. I may dress it up as work. I remember when I was a young novice, one day I was sitting in the office after Arati. I was sitting in the office and doing some office work. Then I was scolded by the senior monk, the monk in charge of the ashram. He said, "What were you doing there?" I said, "Office work." He said, "No, I don't want to see you in the office after evening Arati. Either you will sit and meditate, Or you go to your room, shut yourself in your room. If you can meditate, if you can study, good. I don't even care if you sit in your room, and if you fall asleep also, I don't care. I don't want you to come out of the room until the bell for night food is given. See, what is it teaching me? This constant restlessness, busyness. Stop it at one time. You must be able to throw yourself into work, but you also must be able to step back from work. So this indriya, this continuous restlessness of the indriyas, the reason why we don't realize the self within is because our attention is being continuously focused outside by um, uh, our the senses. The senses are turned outwards. You see, what was the mantra? The senses, Swayambhu, I forget the mantra, very famous mantra. The Lord has damaged our senses because they have made our senses outward flowing. Paranchikhani vetrinat swayambhu, tasmat param pashyati nantaratman. The senses, the entire sensory system has been turned outwards. And of course, it has been turned outwards. The senses are meant to help us to see, realize the world. They have been turned outwards, but the problem is because of that, such a powerful system, our limited attention is continuously flowing out through that. And therefore, we do not see the inner reality. Inner reality means the consciousness which is lighting up the mind, and through the mind is lighting up the senses. That consciousness is not, we are not attending to it. So second thing is the senses must be withdrawn. Then the mind, even if the senses are withdrawn, I may not be doing anything wrong. I may not be, going out and partying or browsing internet all the time or playing video games or something, but I'm sitting quietly, eyes closed, quietly sitting, but mind is continuously roaming around. Mind is thinking about worldly things. This is the next third one. Napi asamahito anekagra mana vikshipta chitta. Mind is restless. I am quiet. I am not doing anything wrong. My indriyas are also quiet. I am sitting steady in meditation morning and evening, but the mind is not settled, either on the mantra or on the breath, whatever your technique of meditation, or in Vedanta, on the pointer which has been given to me, that I am the witness of all movements of the mind, the Sakshi. That attention is not there. Flickering mind. He says, Anekagramana vikshipta chitta, scattered mind. That also then you cannot realize the Atman. Then finally, you control the senses. So no immoral action. You lead an ethical life. Then control the senses. Then quieten the mind in meditation. Even then, one more step, Shankaracharya says, Samaita chittopi, even when the mind is concentrated. Samaita chittopi san samadhana phalartitva ashanta manaso vyaprita chitta. I have concentrated. Now I must realize the Atman. I must become enlightened now. That idea seizes me. You say, that is good. No, it is not good. Why? Even if that idea is there, that is also a disturbance. That's also in the mind. After all, you are the Atman. That Atman will not be realized by the mind. The Atman will reveal itself. What does it mean by Atman reveal itself? All those have been nicely talked about in Vedanta Sar, at the end of Vedanta Sar. Brahmakara vritti. Those who remember, you will remember phala vyapti and vritti vyapti, what the mind can do and what the mind cannot do, what the reflected consciousness reveals, but what the reflected consciousness cannot reveal, the original consciousness shines forth. Those things we talked about. Those are the technical details of what happens at the moment of enlightenment. So that will not happen if the mind is quiet, but still there is an anxiety about God realization. That now it will happen. Even a devotee who may not be doing this Vedantic approach, just Ishta Devata Dhyana and Japa the person is doing, and then that anxiety is there. I have done so much, I still haven't got the vision of God. One sadhu who was in Rishi Ma Sharada, in those letters, that asked the mother, the letters used to be read out to the mother. Asked the mother that I have done so much of japa, day and night I do japa. Thakur, Sri Ramakrishna has not revealed himself to me yet. When will Sri Ramakrishna have kripa on me, grace on me? So the mother told, dictated, write to him, strict letter she wrote back, saying that God is not like a sack of potatoes. You've got the money and you go to the vegetable market and you buy the sack of potatoes. If you've got enough money, so I've done so much japa, now I can purchase God. No. Just now we read in the mantra, not by your own sadhana will you realize. By the grace of God, you will realize in a devotional context, or by your intensity, you will realize. So, no, that's the first thing the mother said, right? And second, she told them to write to him. He has become a sadhu. If he will not do japa and dhyana, what else will he do? He's a sadhu. Let him do that. So that anxiety. Once Swami Nikhilananda said something to Swami Turiyanandaji. We don't know what he said, but we have got Turiyanandaji to Nikhilananda. Swami Turiyanandaji, disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, he's scolding Swami Nikhilandaji that behind this so-called restlessness for God is some other motive. That we have told you to be patient and keep on doing this, you will realize God. So what is he squashing there? It is this final anxiety of a good sadhaka, of a great sadhaka, who may be very close to enlightenment. But that final anxiety, why am I not realizing? When will it happen? I have fulfilled all the conditions. Drop that also. That's what Turiyanji is telling in that letter to Nikhilanji. Then, once one drops that, then he says, realized by pragyana means that brahmakara vritti, aham brahmasmi. That knowledge will not arise if the other four qualifications, four things he has mentioned. Of all, a moral dharmic life. If the life is adharmic, if I am deliberately doing wrong things in my life, there itself disqualified. Second, I am following an ethical life as far as I can. Second, senses are scattered, restless. I remember once we were studying Vedanta, senior Swami was there, and we used to sit on a mat on the floor. And one brahmachari was sitting, a friend of mine, and his leg was on his lap, and with his foot, he was moving his foot like this. And the Swami said, "Stop! What are you doing?" There's even little restlessness shown in the body. It shows some restlessness in the mind. So restlessness of the sense organs and motor organs, calm it down. I was reading some of the old teachings 500-600 years ago, Gorakhnath in the Nath Sampradaya. So in the old Hindi, hadbada na chale, hadbada na bole. There should not be restlessness in your walking, restlessness in your talking. Then, na shanta manas. After the senses are gathered and quietened, the mind also should not flicker. The mind also should not dwell on things, continuously flow out on things other than the self or the Ishtadevata. And finally, fourth condition, that very subtle point in which the mind is gathered, I must realize God. Drop that. Of course you will realize God, but don't keep thinking about that. So it's a very subtle instruction. This applies only to advanced seekers. All right. Then pragyane. Without this pragyana, by knowledge, one will not attain the atman. But when these conditions are satisfied, then knowledge will arise, and that you will realize. You will definitely be able to realize that you are Brahman. Now Yama concludes this particular section by talking about the nature of the ultimate reality. 25th verse, 20th mantra. Yasya brahma cha kshatram cha ubhe bhavata odana mrityuryasya upasechanam ka ittha veda yatrasa. So nice mantra, a little mystifying. What he says here is, let me give the translation by Gambhiranji. How can one know where this self is? For which self and the Kshatriya become food, and for which death takes the place of a curry. So now we have lunch coming up. What Yama says here is, look at the glory, the awesomeness of your own self. What is the awesomeness of your own self? It says, the Brahmin and the Kshatriya are like rice to it. You know, like lunch, you eat rice. Odanam means rice. The Atman eats it up. We'll see what it means later. Let me give the literal meaning first. Ubhe bhavato odana. And mrityu, death. I myself, Yama says, I myself, I'm death. I bring an end to everything in this universe. I am not even rice. I'm like a curry. I'm like pickles. I'm like sauce. I'm like a savory thing, which is like a side dish. Such is the Atman. Such are you. And is it easy to realize this? Who can realize this? Who means who? One who has not got these qualifications. One with these fourfold qualifications will realize, will become enlightened. One without the fourfold qualifications will not become enlightened. This is the point. Now, why this language? Why suddenly Brahmin and Kshatriya? So what he means here is this. The Brahmin is the one who teaches, who's at the top of society, who teaches spirituality and religion and morals, and who teaches knowledge to society. That one. And Kshatriya, who protects society. So these are the most privileged elite sections of society. By them is indicated the rest of society, all human beings. And by that is indicated all animals and plants, all living beings, indeed all of the universe. So this is an indication for everything in the universe. All of samsara, all of the universe is like rice eaten in lunch as you eat it up. What is the deeper meaning of this eaten by the Atman? It means Atman is the cause of everything, is the reality which manifests as everything. How do you get that? What eats up? The cause eats up the effect. What do I mean by it? When the pot is broken, clay pot is broken, what remains? Clay. When the wave which arises in the water subsides, where does it go back to? Water. It arose in water. It was water also when it arose, and it went back, only water remained. Gold, ornaments, if you melt it down, what will remain? Gold. So in that sense, the clay is eating up the pot because it has disappeared into clay. The water is eating up the waves, and gold is eating up the ornaments. In that sense, it's disappeared back into its cause. The Brahmin and the Kshatriya and every section of society and all living beings and all non-living beings, entire universe is eaten up by the Atman, means the Atman is that from which all of them have come. Second, I was mentioning Brahma Sutra, the second sutra of the Brahma Sutras, Janmadhyasya yataha, the birth, etc. of the universe comes from which? That is Brahman. Asya jagata janmasthiti bhanga yasmat tad Brahma, of this universe, wherefrom it arises, in which it exists, and into which it disappears, that is Brahman. It's like saying, wherefrom this wave arises, in which the wave exists, into which it disappears, that is not Brahman, Atma, water. Similarly, the Atman, it eats up everything, means that it is the source of everything. All of these are appearances in the Atman. We do that. Our dream universe, when you wake up, don't you eat up everything in your dream universe? Everything in the dream universe is eaten up by you. Sureshwar Acharya, in one of his verses, he says, what is the characteristic of the enlightened one? The enlightened one can eat up the entire universe. The whole universe, and the enlightened one can put in his belly. You put the universe in your tummy. What it means is, you are the awareness in which the universe appears, plays around, and disappears. Like the wave appears, plays around, and disappears in water. Like all the contents of a dream appear in the dreaming mind, play around, and disappear back into the dreaming mind when the dreaming mind awakens. Similarly, you are the Atman. You are, in technical Vedantic terms, abhinna nimitta upadana karanam, the one undivided, intelligent and material cause of the universe. But what kind of cause? Vivatta karanam, that which appears as the effect. You're like the rope which appears as the snake, like the desert which appears like the mirage, like the sky which appears to be blue. Not that the rope has become a snake, not that the desert has become water, not that the sky has actually become blue, even when it looks blue. Similarly, not that you, the Atman, have become this universe or this person, even when it looks like that. You are still awareness itself. In you, all this is appearing. You are the one who eats up the universe. When the moment right now, in Kashmiri Shaivism, there's the idea of Bhairava. When Bhairava opens the eyes open, universe manifests. When Bhairava closes his eyes, the universe disappears into Bhairava. That Bharanath, Ravanath, Vamanath. The Bhairava is the one who literally vomits out the universe, who sustains the universe, and then dissolves it back into oneself. Who is this Bhairava who can do this to the universe? It's you. It's consciousness. How does the Bhairava do that? Karana Drishti, Karya Drishti. What is Karya Drishti? When the eyes are open. When you see the table, you see the chair, you see the wave. What is Karana Drishti? When the eyes are closed, means with the eye of knowledge, you see the wood, which is appearing as the table and chair. You see the water, which is appearing as thousands of waves. Similarly, Karya Drishti, Bhairava's eyes are open, you see a world, body, mind, world, individuals, samsara. Karana Drishti, you turn it around, you see awareness only, in which names and forms are playing around. This is the opening of the eyes and closing of the eyes. This is the eye of knowledge. Closing of these eyes means opening the eye of knowledge, by which you reduce this universe to its reality, its consciousness. Here it is called eating up. The Atman eats up the universe. And Mrityu, time itself is nothing for it. So space and time and causation, Maya is nothing for it. It's just a tasty sauce, or upasechana means curry or a sauce, with which nicely you can mix up the rice and eat it up. So this is the meaning. Who can realize such a self? Is only one who has got those qualifications which I mentioned. Oh, Nachiketa, beware. Only because of those qualifications you are able to realize. The one who is not qualified by like you, and that one will not become enlightened. Again, in another way, Yama will go on with the teaching, the next section. Let me quickly look at the comments here. Sean Lee says, when can one understand that he or she is spiritually enlightened? No problem at all, because the Sri Ramakrishna says, your enlightenment itself will show you that you're enlightened. He gives a rather crude example. The little boy asked the mother, "Mother, when it's time for me to go to toilet, you wake me up." The mother said, "Don't worry. Yeah, the feeling of going to toilet itself will wake you up from sleep. Don't worry about it." Similarly, you don't have to be told that you're enlightened. You will see for yourself. But one good test is, what is the promise? That you will go beyond sorrow, you will attain fulfillment. You check for yourself. Have I gone beyond sorrow? Have I attained fulfillment, unshakable fulfillment? Have I gone beyond sorrow? Yes, then you are lucky. No, then some more work is remaining. Gaurav says our attention flows outside. After understanding Vedanta and bringing that attention to awareness, being aware of being aware, is that what is meant by one's choosing self? By word yearning, I get sense of lack. But understanding Vedanta, I'm going to back awareness, knowing that I'm ultimately don't lack anything. It's correct. However, the more important thing, more important than bringing attention to awareness, is realizing what I am not. Because bringing attention to awareness can create a problem. The awareness which you are supposed to attend to is not an object. You cannot attend to it. You have to realize that everything that comes to your attention is not I. That alertness is required. So every problem that comes to me, how do I apply Vedanta to understand that problem and see that it is an object, it's a drishya, and I am the unaffected witness. Don't try to make the witness an object. Knowing that I ultimately don't lack anything. Yes, this ultimately don't lack anything is not just rhetoric, that I don't lack anything, telling oneself, no, as long as I feel the lack, I'm still looking towards samsara to fulfill me. I have not yet appreciated the unlimited nature of myself, the atman. When I'm unlimited, what do I lack? Unlimited means infinite. If I see there is some unhappiness, dissatisfaction in the mind, let me inquire. If I've realized I am Brahman, why should the mind be dissatisfied? What would it lack? Should be at peace, should be full of joy. Often it is past habits. The mind has a state of acting as body, mind, and holding on to past dissatisfactions or conditioning. So that has to be given up. Dima says, how does desire to be enlightened increase? Does it follow reconditioning of causal body, listening, rationalizing, meditating? I'll just give a hint. I mentioned this earlier, the fourfold qualification. The last one is the intense desire to be enlightened, which Yama says is most important. But the question here is, how do I intensify that? If that's most important, how do I intensify that? If you remember, in the fourfold qualifications I mentioned, there's a secret to it. Each one is the cause of the next one. So intense desire to be liberated. The cause of that is the six treasures. The six treasures, the disciplines. If I find my desire to be liberated is not intense, let me intensify those disciplines. Then the effect will be intensification of the desire for enlightenment. But I find those disciplines are lax. They're not strong enough. Then instead of struggling there, let me intensify the one before that. What is that? Vairagya, dispassion for the world. The moment there is deep dispassion for the world, those disciplines will become natural to me. And then the intense desire for enlightenment or devotion to God, one of the two, will grow. But dispassion for the world is not coming. Then let me intensify the first one, that viveka. Let me sit and think about it. This difference between the ultimate spiritual reality and samsara. Nitya anitya vastu viveka. Let me be very clear about it. Otherwise, there's some confusion there. Some kind of thinking that the things in this world are real, they're important, they are nice, they're worth having. Some kind of understanding is there. That's the misunderstanding that has to be removed. Viveka. Rodrigo says, does quantum mechanics reveal that life is but a dream? And there's so many interpretations. It's very interesting. Physics, quantum mechanics, so many interpretations. I suppose you can give philosophical meanings to some of these interpretations that they are given nowadays, interpretations. Rick says, the sixfold treasure seems number 2, control of senses and action. And for number 4, withdrawal of the senses from too much engagement are very similar. How are they different? So control of the organs of sense and action is at the physical level. Like that novice, brahmachari was tapping his foot. Stop. It's a gross example, but there are many such things in them, and some of them can be pretty subtle. What my eyes are doing, what my ears are, what they want. Am I chasing my tongue? That means trying to get good food. So all of these things, control there, kind of moderation and discipline there. So that's at that level. But the uparati, the withdrawal, that is at the mental level. The mind, the desires in the mind are what are forcing the senses out into those their respective avenues. So that has to be given up at the mind. The mind has to be reversed. That I am not interested in those things. I am interested in something which is my own inner reality. Let me turn inwards. Then the senses also will be automatically withdrawn. But before that, a certain amount of control of the senses is necessary. And Shravani says, difference between anxiety, restlessness for realization, mumukshutvam. Yeah, that's why it's a very subtle point. Mumukshutvam is general one-pointedness towards God realization. It will color your whole life. I want God realization. I want enlightenment. But there is a certain subtle, very subtle disturbance created in the mind, which is eager to say, I now want God realization. But the problem is the mind cannot get God realization. The mind cannot get atma jnana. The atman is revealed in the mind because atman is swaprakasha. The mind can only be put in the right format, which is what we did in the Vedanta Sara, you see, Brahmakara Vritti. So, yes. But the distinction is very subtle, which is right. Shri says, our epiphanies, those aha moments, not Thakur or truth revealing itself. There are fleeting moments, certain points in life when even for a brief second one's life comes into focus or makes perfect sense. While that is not enlightenment, it's a glimpse of realization. Those are good insights. They are helpful, and to the extent that they are retained and they actually change one's life, one's perceptions of life. So one's growing in wisdom. But enlightenment is very specific. It is the realization that God is real and forever. There's a before and after. After that, the God or the Atman, Brahman is real for you and is continuously accessible for you. So that's a much deeper phenomenon. Otherwise, what you're speaking about will happen to everybody. As we become mature, as we experience things in life, better and better understanding comes. As we read the same texts, as we practice japa and dhyana, better and better understanding will come. That's good. P. Srinivas Raju says, there's a very thin dividing line between intense desire for enlightenment and expecting the result of spiritual practice. Yes, that is the same point. Intensity for anything need not be accompanied by anxiety or restlessness. There can be steady intensity, yes, as shown in one's life. Steady, sincere focus on God realization. It's a very subtle point, but Yama thought it important to mention it. And I remember in some of the dharanas mentioned in Kashmiri Shaivism, a practice is given and you have to meditate on that and blank out everything else and hold on to that particular practice or thought. But at the last moment, you're supposed to let go of that practice also. So the final thing is not something that is accomplished by the mind. It is something, if you're devotional, you'll say it comes from Ishvara, from Bhagavan, God. If you are an Advaitin, you will say Swaprakash Atma, Atman shines forth. All right, good. Let us do the Shanti. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.
तो अब एक तो अब स्वामी जी ने बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट बातें हमारे साथ आज शेयर की और हर बार की तरह से एक छोटे से सार भजन जिसमें वेदांत का सार है उससे हम ख़त्म करेंगे। ये कल भी हमने शेयर किया था लेकिन स्ट्रीम यार्ड में कुछ प्रॉब्लम्स थी तो हम ज़्यादा लोग इसे सुन नहीं पाए थे। तो इसके शब्द हैं, छोड़ दे मन से दुख की चिंता, सुमिर तू नित्य ये सत्य रे, देह तू नहीं, मन भी तू नहीं, तू है आत्मा जान ले। हार गया तू खोज में सुख के, इस जग के सब भोग में, परमानंद है तेरे अंदर, कभी वहाँ तो झांक रे। छोड़ दे मन से दुख की चिंता, सुमिर नित्य ये सत्य रे। मैं तू के इस भेद में मनवा, मैं और तू के इस भेद में मनवा, नहीं है शांति जान ले। एक ही आत्मा सब में है तू, है सब में ही व्याप्त रे। छोड़ दे मन से दुख की चिंता, सुमिर नित्य तू सत्य रे। देह तू नहीं, मन भी तू नहीं, तू है आत्मा जान ले। आत्म साम्राज्य का तू ही मालिक, मनवा तू कभी दीन नहीं। परम शक्ति का स्त्रोत्र भी तू है, मनवा तू कमजोर नहीं। छोड़ दे मन से दुख की चिंता, सुमिर तू नित्य ये सत्य रे। देह तू नहीं, मन भी तू नहीं, तू है आत्मा, जान ले।
छोड़ दे मन से दुख की चिंता, निधि सुमिर सत्य रे। देह तू नहीं, मन भी तू नहीं, तू है आत्मा, जान ले। मन से दुख की चिंता, निधि सुमिर तू सत्य रे। देह तू नहीं, मन भी तू नहीं, आत्मा जान ले। जब भी मन से दुख की चिंता, निधि सुमिर सत्य रे। देह तू नहीं, मन भी तू नहीं, तू है आत्मा, जान ले। मन से दुख की चिंता, निधि सुमिर तू सत्य रे। देह तू नहीं, मन भी तू नहीं, आत्मा जान ले। हर गया तू मुझे सुख के, इस जग के सब भोग में। हार गया तू मुझे सुख के, इस जग के सब भोग में। हार गया तू मुझे सुख के, इस जग के सब भोग में। हार गया तू मुझे सुख के, इस जग के सब भोग में। परमानंद तेरे संग, परमानंद तेरे अंदर, छोड़ दे मन से दुख की चिंता, निधि सुमिर तू सत्य रे। देह तू नहीं, मन भी तू नहीं, तू है आत्मा, जान ले। मन से दुख की चिंता, निधि सुमिर तू सत्य रे। देह तू नहीं, मन भी तू नहीं, आत्मा जान ले।
नहीं शांति ज्ञान में। तुमके वेद में मनवा नहीं है शांति ज्ञान में। तुमके वेद में मनवा नहीं है शांति ज्ञान में। तुमके वेद में मनवा नहीं है शांति ज्ञान में। एक ही आत्मा सब में हेतु सब में है या गुरु। एक ही आत्मा सब में हेतु छोड़ दे मन से दुख की चिंता। मेरे सत्य यह तू नहीं मन भी तू नहीं। आत्मा ज्ञान मन से चिंता मेरे तो सही तो नहीं मन भी तो नहीं। आत्मा आत्म साम्राज्य का तू ही मालिक। बनवा तो कभी दिन नहीं। आत्म साम्राज्य का तू है मालिक। बनवा तो कभी दिन नहीं। आत्म साम्राज्य का तू है मालिक। बनवा तो कभी दिन नहीं। आत्म साम्राज्य का तू है मालिक। बनवा तो कभी दिन नहीं। परम सत्य का स्रोत भी तू ही। परम शक्ति का स्रोत भी तू है। छोड़ दे मन से दुख की चिंता। सत्य वह तू नहीं मन भी तू नहीं। तेरी आत्मा ज्ञान मन से दुख की चिंता। मेरे तो सत्य तो नहीं मन भी तो नहीं। आत्मा